right, so the next step, and we're almost there to the end, because I'd like some time to chat. What we've done is, okay, so suppose we spent that money and brought people's skill level up to the level demanded by their job. What would the direct economic benefits be, because literacy affects people's productivity and hence affects their wage rates? The analysis we've done shows that people on average at the Canada level gain $155 per point more in earnings. So when you work that out with province-specific data and industry and occupation-specific data, you get a total investment for the English market in Nova Scotia of $404 million. Getting your checkbook out, Stu? So everybody, this is where people gasp, $404 million, where the hell are we going to get that? I mean, that's a lot of money. That's like the kind of numbers that the health system talks about. So the story gets better. Who can read this number? Someone read that to me. 2422? That's $2.4 billion in economic returns per year from that investment if the labor market could absorb those extra skills. Now, I've said before that's a big if, because the labor market takes a while to absorb skills and there may be demand deficiencies, but if you organized your economy the right way, that implies a 500% rate of return. Who knows what Canada savings bonds are returning these days? 1.75%? Would you want to invest in literacy? Okay, now a little bit of rock throwing. I know some of you in the room, I know some about where Nova Scotia spends its dollars on literacy. And I think it's fair to say that it's almost all on the traditional literacy segments, the illiterates, A1, A2, B1, B2. It isn't on those C, Ds, Es, and Fs. If you look at the rates of return, because the costs are so high of where you've been spending your money, for those A1s, the men that bumped their head in the night, you're only going to get 189% return. Still positive, but compared to the rate of return on the Es and Fs that are over 1,000%, if it was your money and it was your small business, we know where Stu would be investing his money. So the question is, the statement is, it makes economic sense, so all that's left is the fight about who should pay. I think I have one, oh no, yeah. I don't trust those numbers. That was pasted in yesterday, I'm not sure it's right. We've done an analysis that looks at the proportion of people in each segment and whether they fall below Statistics Canada's low income cutoff. The thought here is that if they do, then they can't afford to self-finance their upgrading themselves. And depending on the province, it runs anywhere from 12% to 48%. So it really depends on the province whether the case can be made in the first instance on government investment. That maybe it should be employers and workers that pay for these things themselves. So, but I'm going to say firmly that government needs to pay. And the reason government needs to pay is that workers and their employers will never get around to investing fast enough to attenuate the worst of the economic consequences. They will get around to it because we're coming into a labor shortage, and we've seen from the data we have a literacy skill shortage, but people and firms are slow to react, and they're spoiled by having 50 years of having literacy and labor surpluses, and so things have worked pretty well. Workers have been able to have good lives. Think of the lobster fishermen here, or people skidding logs in the bush. They've been able to have handsome livings without having very high literacy levels. The key part of my story is that's going to change. It is in the process of changing. So unless government invests now, the problem's going to bite us in the arse, economically. Okay, so a summary. Skills matter to our economic and social welfare and to what we get for our tax investments. There's an urgency to act. The data is pretty unequivocal now, but there's a fight, or at least a healthy debate about who should pay for it, and you've just heard what I think should happen. The problem won't go away by itself because those forecasts of literacy supply suggest that we're still going to have a problem and it's going to get bigger, not smaller, in terms of the low-skilled adults. If we could summon the political courage to invest enough to eliminate the problem, if we're even half right, the economic benefits would be massive. And here's where I can say something bitchy. It shouldn't be giving money to car companies, because car companies are the only industry in 35 countries where we found skill aversions, where people get paid way more than their skill. So from your point of view, most of you are in the literacy industry or in policy. We have to make sure that the program offerings of the literacy industry are matched to the profiles of the need, which I don't think they are. If we get government to pay, then the issue becomes accountability. Can the sector deliver the goods on swallowing an investment that at the Canada level is $18 billion? The answer is unequivocally no. So there needs to be human resource development like there is in any other industry. And that will depend on getting information on what the literacy industry is, who's in it, what their training is, what technology they're using, what are their revenues, who's paying how much, and what are the learning needs of the instructor pool, because surely there's going to be some. And so where I end is, for 40 years we've had minimum wages. Why don't we have minimum skill guarantees for youth and for adults? That would be a strategic way of managing the skill agenda for our economic future. And if we don't, quoting my Newfoundland friends, boy, she's going to bite you in the arse. So that's the story.